Hey guys, it's Edie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hope you're all doing well. And in today's video I'm going to be doing my March reading wrap up. So here I've got my March bullet journal spread and it's got some little statistics in that I've put down. So I have read 15 books this month. I did also DNF one book this month, and in total, like, the categories of like genres of books I read 9 romance, 5 fantasy and 1 that was in like the other category, and then 10 of those were physical, 3 of those were Kindle, there was 1 audio and 1 e-art. That is basically a little summary of like some stats from March, so I'm just going to go right into it. I'm going to do all my books that were on my March TBR and I'm going to say if I read them or not. I did have a really good month of reading like the books that are on my like TBR for the month. I always pick 6 every month and I actually read 5 out of 6, which have been the best month so far. So let me just go over all of the books that were on my TBR and what I rated them and just things like that. So the first book on my March TBR was Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan, and I did read this and I did give this a 5 stars. And then basically this book is a basketball romance and it follows Iris and August, and they meet on this like night in a bar and they really hit it off, and then when he goes to kiss her she's like, oh, I have a boyfriend, I can't, and it just starts off from there. And at first Iris is in this relationship with this guy that she has been in a relationship with college, and there's some things that go on in that relationship, so do check the trigger warnings because this does have quite a bit of DV in it. And they like meet again later on in life through like I'm not going to say why, but she kind of moves away to a different city and August ends up being in that city, and they kind of like rekindle things and they start dating and seeing each other, and it's just such a beautiful story. This book was such phenomenal and took me on such an emotional roller coaster, and I feel like that's because of the sensitive topics that are in this book. It was written with so much care and attention. Like the moment I started reading this book I was connected to both the main 2 characters, Iris and August. They were just phenomenal, and all the things that were happening to Iris, it really just broke my heart, like reading all the stuff that was going on in her life, and then like seeing her like grow as a person and being able to overcome all these things. It was just really like beautifully written. And like August's character, the way he remembered all the tiny little details about like Iris, and especially from things she like told him when they first met in that bar like years and years and years ago, he still remembered like all the little things, and it was just really sweet. And Iris really didn't want to rush into a relationship, and August was just so understanding and he was just really there for her, and it just really melted my heart, this story, and it was just so beautifully written. And if you haven't read this, you definitely need to read this. The next book on my March TBR is My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine, and I gave this book, was it 3.75? Yes, I did. I gave it a 3.75 and I really did like it. This follows Cassie and Frederick, and Cassie is not making much money. She's struggling and she's got, I believe she's just gotten kicked out of, or was looking for a new place to live, and she's on this like page and she comes across this like apartment, well, to live in an apartment with this other person, and it's really cheap and it's such a nice place, and she's a bit skeptical but she's like, oh yeah, I don't have much money, blah. So she goes, looks at it, and she moves in, and the person she moves in with ends up being Frederick, and he ends up being a vampire, and it's just kind of their relationship and how it works from there. So this is like a roommate situation, so you could kind of say almost forced proximity. And I don't particularly remember too much about this book, but I do remember having such a fun time while reading it. I just thought it was so funny, so captivating. I liked the characters, there wasn't anything I disliked about it, and the fact that he's like kind of like a vampire, it was just so much like fun reading it. Also, do they end up fake dating in this? I can't actually remember, but I remember roughly that Frederick is like, he's not involved in modern times. He's like acts like it's like years and years ago because he was in this like coma or sleep state, so he doesn't really understand everything that's going on, and Cassie kind of like helps him like figure out the 21st century. And it's really funny because he insists on like writing notes to Cassie instead of like, he doesn't want to text, he doesn't want to do any of this, and I just thought it was so fun. So the next book on my March TBR was Bride of the Shadow Kin by Sylvia Mercedes, and I gave this a 3.5 stars. And this basically is like a marriage of convenience or arranged marriage, and I always struggle to pronounce the FMC's name. I always say it's like Farani. I don't really know, but it's something like that. And then it also follows King Vor, and King Vor is like the king of the like fairy people. I'm not going to try and say her name again, but she's like a princess. She's the oldest princess of the king of the human lands, but she's not really involved in that life anymore. She lives away from the palace, away from the kingdom, and one day she gets told she's got to go back to the like palace to help her get her sister down from one of the towers, because her sister's is being in an arranged marriage to the King Vor. So she goes, gets her down, they end up being in this arranged marriage, but King Vor, before he gets to the like palace and before the FMC gets to the palace as well, they meet and they don't hit it off, but they get along really well, and they kind of have feelings for each other. And so, but he's destined to marry her sister, so he goes back to his land and his sister has to make this like her way to the land. And I'm not really going to say anything else because I don't want to spoil it, but there was a twist in it. You can kind of see it coming because of how the way the book is and what it entails. Is that right way? I don't really know, but it didn't take away, even though I could see it coming, I still did like the book. That plot twist was like halfway through the book, and there is another plot twist at the end, which was kind of not plot twist, but it leaves on a bit of a cliffhanger. And I really did love the like chemistry and the interactions between the two main characters. I thought it was pretty good, and I really enjoyed the characters as a storyline. It's not one of my favourite like fantasy books, but I can see myself growing to like it more maybe as I read the rest of the 2 books in the series, because this is a trilogy and all the books are published, so you can literally just read them all in like one go if you wanted to. The next book on my March TBR is Heir of Broken Fate by Mads Rafferty, and I gave this a 4 stars. This is the first book in, I don't know what the series is called. Is it just called Heir of Broken Fate? I'm not really sure, but I really did enjoy this. And this basically follows a princess called Delilah, and she doesn't have a very nice father, let's just say it like that, and her people are not being treated very well, and she just really wants to save them. And she discovers these people that are invisible in her land, and she's like, oh, I want to save them as well. So she somehow makes it her way to the Fae people and the Fae kingdom, and then she meets Nox, which Nox is one of the Fae kings of, I believe it's the Essence Court, I want to say, and he ends up helping her and they end up forming this relationship. And there's more to that, but I'm not going to say because I'm not going to spoil it for you, because I hate spoiling books for people. But I just really enjoyed this so much, and this is Mads' first ever like book, and I thought it was really good for a first book. And people are comparing it or saying it has similarities to ACOTAR. I would say yes, it does have similarities to ACOTAR, but I always feel like quite a lot of like maybe like Fae books are similar, and I feel like because it's such a big like fantasy series, ACOTAR is, a lot of people like to compare things to it. And I found this book really fast paced. I didn't want to put it down at all while I was reading it. It had me like gripped from the beginning to the end, and I loved all the characters, I loved the storyline, I loved the found family in this book, and like some of the things Nox was saying to Dahlia had me kicking and gigging my feet, having me feeling all those feelings. One thing I will say, this book does not end in a major cliffhanger. If I remember correctly, it's something along the lines of being like, oh, what could happen next? Someone says something like that. So it's not like a major cliffhanger, but there's still a bit of a like almost mystery of being like, oh, what's gonna happen next? I don't know why, but I was craving a cliffhanger off this book. But the next book in the series, which I'll talk about later in this video, there was a major cliffhanger in that book, and I need the next book now. But anyway, that is that book. The next book on my March TBR was Scarlet Princess by Robert D. Mahale and Eddie Madison, and I haven't read this book. No reason why, I just didn't feel like picking it up this month. And the final book that was on my March TBR is Power Play by Chelsea Caruto, and this book follows Piper and Liam. Liam is, I believe he's the goalie for the DC Stars, which is like a hockey team, and Piper is she something to do with the media? No, she's, yeah, media team that like does all the coverage for the TV, for the games and things like that. That's what she does. So you could almost say this is a workplace romance. Basically, Piper has just gotten out of her like long-term relationship where she was married with this guy from like she met in college, and they were never really that intimate, and she really wants to experience more of those intimate things. So she like basically just asks Liam, oh, do you want to help me? And Liam just says yes. So they end up in this friends with benefits situation, and then they end up having this like night in Vegas with the team, and they end up being married. So this is also kind of like it's marriage of convenience as well, which if you haven't watched many of my videos or this is your first one, marriage of convenience is one of my like favourite tropes. I don't think I've actually said what I rated this book. I ended up rating this a 3.5 stars because this wasn't my favourite. Like I did like it while reading it, but compared to the first book in this series, I didn't like it as much. If you want to read a book where the couple is like amazing at communication, this is a book for that. Like the way like Piper and Liam communicate with each other, it was just so phenomenal. They were like always, how do you feel about this? Are you alright? Just things like that. It was just top tier communication skills in this book. And the way this book hints at like couples that could be coming up in this series, I am just really excited to read those books. And I just love this series so much, and the like team dynamic in this series, they like have this group chat and it's just so much fun and there's so much banter. And then they always have these like nights once a week where they go to eat all the different teammates' houses, and they don't talk about hockey, they just hang out and have fun and like almost bond as a team. And it's just so much fun reading like the team dynamic of this book. I feel like it's one of my favourite aspects of this series so far. So now we're just moving on to all the other books that I have read in March. The next book I picked up was Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I gave this a 4 stars. This follows Scarlett and Lucas, and Scarlett is like a diver for the Stanford college team and Lucas is the swimmer for Stanford college like team. So this is a college romance. You could say this is very kinky because they both kind of like BDSM stuff, but I didn't think it was that kinky compared to a lot of other books, and I know a lot of people were saying they didn't like it because of that, but for me personally it wasn't really that kinky or really that spicy, to be honest. And basically Scarlett has had this injury and she's been recovering from it and she hasn't really had time for relationships, and Lucas has just like gotten out of a relationship, and Lucas's like ex-girlfriend is like one of Scarlett's like best friends on the swim team, or on the diving team actually, and she's like, oh, you two should like just have a fling because you both like the same thing. So they kind of just start off having a fling and then they develop feelings for each other. One thing I will say, it's taken me a while to get into this book. I don't know what it was, but I did end up really enjoying it. I had so much fun while reading it. I feel like this is typical Ali Hazelwood. It's easy to follow along with, easy to understand. I like the characters. This is told in first person, but it's only told in Scarlett's point of view. And I do kind of wish there was like Lucas' point of view, because some of the things he was saying to Scarlett in Scarlett's point of view had me just kicking and giggling my feet and blushing, and I just really wanted his point of view. I don't know why, but I do, because I just love dual POV books. I think the character Pen, which is like Lucas's ex and Scarlett's like best friend on the diving team, was a bit I did not like her. She was shown like too much. I feel like she didn't need to be mentioned or in that many scenes, because she was just like always there almost, and it was kind of annoying. I probably still would have disliked her character because of what happened at the end, but maybe I would have disliked her less if she wasn't mentioned as much throughout this book, because not that it took away from like Lucas and Scarlett's relationship, I just feel like she was just mentioned too much. The next book I read was First Time Caller by B.K. Borison, and I gave this a 4.25. And this book follows Aiden and Lucy. Aiden is like the host of like a romance hotline, and Lucy, I can't remember what she does, but she's a single mum, she has a daughter, and one day her daughter rings up like the romance hotline and it's like, oh, my mum needs help, I want my mum to be in a relationship, blah 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 blah. And then Lucy hears her daughter talking to this random like guy on the phone, and her daughter's not even that old. He's like, who's she talking to? She goes in there and ends up talking on the phone to Aiden, and then like the like phone call interview thing between Aiden and Lucy kind of goes viral, and then they approach her being like, oh, do you want to come on this hotline? And she agrees, and they start trying to set Lucy up for dates and going on calling people on the hotline to see if they would match. While that's all going on, they can start developing feelings for each other. And I just absolutely loved reading this book. I feel like it was given all the early 2000s like rom-com films, and it was just everything. Lucy would like say things on the radio show while she was on there, and Ada was like remembering every single little thing she was saying about herself and the things she liked, the things she didn't like, and oh, it was just so cute because this is told as like dual POV, and when you're in Aidan's POV he would be thinking all of these things about Lucy, and oh, it was just so good. And I absolutely love this book. The next book I picked up was Scythe and Sparrow by Brim Weaver. I ended up giving this a 3 stars, and this book follows Fionn and Rosie. And Rosie is like this serial killer and Fionn is a doctor or something. He's something like that. And what I remember about this book, because I don't really remember too much, Fionn has just gotten out of like an engagement and he's kind of heartbroken. And then Rosie ends up hurting herself somehow while trying to someone, and he kind of helps her recover and he looks after her while she's recovering. I believe that is like the sum up of this book if I remember correctly. And this is the 3rd book in what's it called? Is it just called Butcher and Blackbird series? I'm not sure. This is my probably least favourite book out of the series, but I still did like it while reading it. I listened to all of this book on Spotify audio because it's part of the premium part of it where you can get your 15 hours free of listening, and I think that's the best way to like read or listen to these books because they are so fun to listen to on the audiobooks because they're just so ridiculous. And I feel like the way they're narrated is so much fun because even when you're in the other person's point of view, if the character, like, well, say if Rosie's saying something in Fionn's point of view, the narrator that's narrating for Rosie will say her lines in Fionn's point of view and vice versa. Because when I went into this book, I was kind of worried that Fionn was going to be like, oh, I'm so in love with my ex, oh, I miss her so much. But he wasn't like that at all. He didn't really like miss her or say much about her, which I was really actually happy about. Because one thing, if he was like that while like Rosie was like, oh, I really like him, it would have annoyed me, but he wasn't like that, which was really good. I feel like if you don't like spice in your book, you probably will not like this book or this series because there is quite a lot of spice and some of it is very, I don't know the way to describe it, but dark spice. So the next book I read was the E-Arc that I got given, and it was Tangle and Vows by Jasmine Miller, and I ended up giving this book a 4 stars. And this book follows Holden and Olivia, and Olivia is this like singer and Holden is a bodyguard, and Holden is like the, I guess, owner of the bodyguard business. And one day her bodyguard gets injured, so Holden shows up backstage to one of her concerts and is like, I am your bodyguard. Sorry, the lighting keeps changing, the sun keeps going in and out behind the clouds. But anyway, they end up in this arranged marriage as well. And then there's also this big secret Holden is keeping from Olivia, and it was just so good, this book. I feel like it was really, really action-packed with so much stuff, so many twists, so many turns. The storyline was amazing, this book was so well paced, I loved the characters, and this book had me giggling and kicking my feet so many times. And the text messages in this book between Holden and his friends were so funny, and I will say the last like 20% of this book, literally I was sitting on the edge of my seat for the whole time because everything was going on, so many twists, like I said, so many turns, it's action packed. And like there was something that happened, well, someone was doing something throughout this book, and when it got revealed at the end like who was doing all this stuff, I was shocked. I did not see that coming. I was just flabbergasted. And also there was no third act breakup, and that was so good. Also he says my wife. So if you love that sort of things, I feel like you would just love this book, and I can't recommend this enough. The next book I read was Rebel Witch by Kristen Cicilleri, and this is the 2nd book in the Crimson Moth duology, and I ended up giving this 5 stars because it was just such a perfect ending to Rune and Gideon's story. And it starts off right from where the 1st book finished, and just the way the tension, the just banter, everything in this book just made it phenomenal. I can't really explain too much about what this book is because I don't want to spoil it, but basically Rune is a witch and Gideon is a witch guard, and throughout the first book, Gideon was trying to hunt Rune down, well, the Crimson Moth down, but he didn't know it was Rune, but he suspected it was Rune. So they kind of like fate dated in the first book. And when I read the Crimson Moth last year, I thought this duology couldn't get any better, but it did. This book tops that because I gave Crimson Moth 4.5 stars. I literally could not put this down. It had me gripped from the beginning to the end. I literally could have sat there in the whole day and read this book if I had time, because the last 50% of this book I literally read in one sitting. I did not want to put it down because it was just, I feel like so much was happening. It was well paced, it kept me hooked throughout. The love confessions between Rune and Gideon were everything, like just the banter, the tension, just everything about this book I loved. Also, the last 30 pages of this book had me sobbing. Like, if you've read this and you know what happens at the end to like Rune, and like I was literally sobbing. I was like, no, this can't be happening. And then it all got resolved and they all got there like happily ever after. So it does end in a happy way, but you kind of have to break your heart to get to that happy ending. So my camera just died, so I had to have a new battery in. But then anyway, the next book I read was Wild Side by Elsie Silver, and this is the third book in the, what's it called? Rose Hill series. I think. And I ended up giving this book 5 stars, and this book follows Tabitha and Reese, and Reese is like this like WWE sort of like wrestler, and Tabitha is a chef in one of the restaurants in Rose Hill that she actually owns and runs. This starts off with Tabitha's younger sister, younger or older? Young? I can't remember. Well, Tabitha's sister has passed, and Tabitha's sister's got a little kid, and her sister used to live right next to one of Reese's like properties in like a neighbouring like town or village, quite a bit away though. And when she reads the will is said that the little kid is going to be in the custody of Reese, and Tabitha's not happy about this. She's like, oh, he should stay in the family. And then Reese isn't actually like Canadian, he's actually American, and he does his like wrestling in America, so he has to go back and forth quite a lot, and he gets stopped at the borders once and he's like, oh, why are you coming back, you can't stay here that long, things like that. And then he tells Tabitha, and then she's like, oh, we should get married, and then you can come when you want, stay however long you want, and then like she will be able to look after the little boy. And it is a marriage of like convenience, and I've just realised this month I've read quite a lot of like marriage of convenience, but it is one of my favourite tropes because I just love it so much. And I knew I was going to enjoy this like book a lot because hence it's one of my favourite tropes, but how much I enjoyed it, I did not expect to like it this much, and oh, it was just amazing. And Heartless, which is in the Chestnut Spring series, is probably my favourite Elsie Silver book, and this one is giving Heartless a run for its money. This is how much I love this book. The way this book had me feeling, all the emotions from the very like first page was everything I wanted, and all the things like Reese would say to Tabitha and about Tabitha would have me kicking and giggling on my feet. And if you know that one thing, is it Will Smith that says it? It's like, get your hands off, or something like, don't talk about my wife. He says this in this book, something along the lines of that, and when I read that, it was just so good. And the little boy, which is like Tabitha's like nephew, is called Milo, and the bond that Reese and Milo have in this book was just so good. They were like everything to me, the little bond they had, and I just loved it. Reese's character development throughout this book was so good, and there were times where he was like thinking to himself he was just not deserving or good enough, and that just really broke my heart, him like thinking and saying things like that. I was just like, you deserve the world. The next book I read was The House of My Mother by Sherry Frankie, and if you don't know what this is basically Sherry telling her story about what it was like growing up with her mum. And if you were on YouTube, I can't really remember what it was like, probably like 2014 sort of time, 15, she was part of like a really famous like YouTube family, the 8 Passengers, and it was just about like the things she had to deal with and the things that are happening behind the scenes, and how it was actually really like growing up like that, and all the things her siblings and her had to deal with. And it was really heartbreaking reading this. I sobbed, I cried, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. And like when I was like a teenager watching all these like family YouTube channels, especially 8 Passengers, you think, oh, they're such a perfect family, I want to be like them, I want to be in their family, but in reality it's just a lot different than what comes across. And like I said, it just broke my heart reading this book. The next book I read was Heir of Broken Kingdom by Maz Rafferty, and this is the second book that comes after the Heir of Broken Fate, and it pretty much starts off from where it was again. And there's like this big battle in this book between like Delilah and her father, and things that go on between them. I can't really say much about this because it will spoil the rest, well, this book and things that have happened in the first book, but I ended up giving this a 4.5 stars because this book was absolutely phenomenal. And this is how you write a sequel. It had me gripped from the very first like letter and sentence to the very last sentence. I did not want to put it down because I feel like so much was happening, there was things going on, and I just wanted to carry on reading it to find out what happened and the build up to this big thing that happened at the end. It was just so much fun, and I feel even more attached to the characters and connected to them. I just absolutely love them so much, and like I said, the found family in this book is phenomenal. And like, this book takes you on such journeys, there's so many twists, so many turns, especially near the end. And the last chapter in this book had me absolutely shocked. I was literally had my jaw on the floor the whole time I was reading it. And it has like a betrayal in that last chapter. And the person that betrayed like the whole like found family friendship group, I did not see that coming. I was like, oh, I could not believe that person done that. I was just like, why? Why would you do that? They were so nice, and it kind of made me sad that they done that. But yeah, I'm very excited to read the third book, which the third book is coming out. Is it sometime this year? I want to say it might be May, or I might be wrong, but it is coming out this year because I need to find out what happens next. After reading the like last chapter, I need to know how, I just need what's gonna happen next, because I just can't stop thinking about that last chapter and everything that happened. The next book I picked up was the book I ended up DNFing this month, and that was At First Bite by Olivia Dade, and this is the Afterlight's monthly subscription book, and I really wanted to like it and like carry on, finish reading it, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I can't remember the two characters' names, but the FMC, she was engaged to this guy. Engagement broke off, I believe, and then she already brought like the present that she was going to give to him for the wedding, which was a house, so she had to move into it, and the next door and the house next to it was the house that her fiance was living in, so they were going to make this house a bigger house basically. And she moves into this house, and who's outside is her brother's, well, her ex's brother, and it's a relationship between them essentially. I didn't really like the MNC from like one of the first chapters because he was saying really just mean things about the FMC to his brother, and I just didn't really like it. I just didn't vibe with this book because this is told in third person, and I find myself, especially with romance books, I don't typically find myself feeling attached to them as much, and I don't enjoy them as much. But maybe other people will enjoy this, but this book just wasn't for me. I got to page 100, and that's where I DNF'd this book. The next book I picked up was Between Commitment and Betrayal by Shani Rose, and this is another marriage of convenience. I ended up giving this book 2 stars because I just did not vibe with it, but basically it follows Declan, who is like a ex-NHL or NFL like player, and he runs this like almost like fitness retreat suite area with this other guy, and Everly is the daughter of the business partner to Declan, if that makes sense. And then Everly's dad, Declan's business partner, ends up dying, and in the will it says that they both need to get married for the business to say, or for basically Declan to get the majority of the business, and also Everly will get part of the business, and just there's other things as well. So it's like a marriage of convenience, arranged marriage sort of thing. And if you know from this video already, I do like, it's my favourite trope, but I just wasn't vibing with this book. The amount of times within the first like 50 or 100 pages that it was mentioned that Everly was like Declan's business partner's daughter was just so annoying. Every time it got mentioned, I found myself rolling my eyes. I was just like, you can maybe mention it once or twice, but mention it every like, I don't even know how often it was mentioned, but I was just like, this is getting out of hand. Like, I get it, I understand she's your business partner's like daughter, I get that. You don't need to tell me hundreds and hundreds of times. It wasn't hundreds of times, but it was a lot. And I just felt like they would just sometimes just start kissing out of nowhere, and I don't know if it's because I didn't feel any tension or chemistry or anything like that between them. I just didn't get the like romance, like, but I don't really know what I'm saying. I just couldn't see them as a couple and working out as a couple because of the, I don't even know why, but I just didn't get a vibe from them that I didn't particularly like. I liked them enough as characters, but together I don't think I liked them together. I think that's what I'm trying to say. So the final book I picked up in March was The Baby Dragon Cafe by A.T. Cruish, and I ended up giving this a 2.75 stars. This is a cozy fantasy. Safara is the FMC, and she opens this baby dragon cafe which will allow all the little baby dragons to come in with their owners, so their owners can have like a coffee and chat and chill and meet other people in there, because a lot of the other places in the town don't let the baby dragons in because baby dragons are very destructive and they can't really control much of their behaviour. And then one day something in the cafe gets really destroyed and broken, and you can't use it anymore, and it's one of the main sources of income for the cafe, and it costs thousands and thousands of currency, or whatever currency they use in this book. And she's like, oh my god, I can't afford it, I'm not gonna be able to keep this open. And then Aiden shows up and he's like, well, if you help me train my baby dragon, I will give you money to do that, and then she will have the money to fix or buy a new like item that was destroyed. That is basically a sum up of this book, and it was alright. There was moments where I was liking this book, but after 50% I feel like the book kind of went downhill for me, because this is marked as a cozy fantasy. It was not a fantasy at all, I'm telling you that. It was just basically a romance book that had sprinklings of fantasy. Like, I wouldn't even call it a romantasy, it was just pure romance, I feel like. I did think this book was really cute and it gave off really sweet vibes, and this book was really quick and easy to read, but I don't know if I didn't like it as much past 50%, because that's when they started having more romantic things were going on, and I just didn't really see them together like romantically. I don't know what it was. I just saw them as friends, I just couldn't see them together. So maybe I think that's what brought my star rating down for this book to a 2.75. So that is all the books I have read in March. I'm going to apologise again for the lighting, because I can tell the lighting has gone in and out. Well, the sun has gone in and out the clouds the whole of this video, so it's probably changed quite a bit, but I can't do anything about that, so I am sorry about that. Anyway, if you did like this book, do give it a thumbs up, and in the comments below put which book was your favourite book that you have read in March. Yes, it was March. I feel like my favourite book is Wild Side by Elsie Silver. I just love that. Also, like The Rebel Witch, I really did like that as well. So those are two very good books I read this month. If you haven't already, do subscribe so you can see more videos from me, and I'll see you next time. Bye!